Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Successful Mentalist podcast. My name is Ashley Green and as always I'm joined with Hayden O'Sullivan, and this is something that we've never actually done on the Successful Mentalist podcast before. You know, last week we had the amazing Tom Elderfield on to really close a fantastic 4 weeks of talking about creativity and the tips and advice he shares and kind of the way he took conversation from what we assumed he was going to say was just beautiful. So massive thanks for that. If you haven't listened to it, do scroll back and give that a listen to. But today is another kind of bonus episode, and it's actually from one of our students from the school. Do you want to say a bit more about this, Hayden?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting episode because obviously if you've been following our work on our socials and stuff, you'll be aware that we're offering coaching sessions which we can literally do. We dissect a specific topic area with you on these 2-on-1 coaching sessions, and this is exactly what this episode is. So Sam, who is with us on this call at the minute, he's a member of our School of the Successful Mentalists, and as part of that, Sam receives every 2 weeks he gets a coaching call with us, and this specific episode or this specific coaching call just stood out, and it was so on topic for the whole creativity month, and we felt that there was a lot of gold in there. So we've kindly asked Sam, who has incredibly generously allowed that entire call to be supplied to you guys on the podcast. So with that said, Sam, did you want to say hey?
You're right, guys. Thanks for having me on here.
Oh, no, thank you. It's honestly huge thanks once again for letting us have and use this call for the wider listeners. With that said, what were your sort of takeaways? What did you enjoy about this call?
Yeah, so let's be honest, there's a lot to go through in this episode, and it's one that I've gone back and watched multiple times just to really kind of get it to sink in. But for me personally, the main thing to take away is actually taking a step back. I'd never really heard of that approach, and really just enjoying where I am at the moment, such as reading all the books and taking in the information. I was really stuck in my ways and almost hitting that brick wall of not being able to do anything because I felt I was just going in circles. But by saying like, well, it's okay to kind of be in that spot and look at creativity from a different aspect, and even just being happy with changing routines to be more personal. I found that really, really helpful.
That's beautiful, and thank you for being so open and honest with us, man. That means a lot. And like Hayden said, I just want to replicate. Thank you for sharing what was originally going to be a private call for just you, and allowing it to be on the podcast, because it was midway through the actual recording of your coaching call that I texted Hayden, and I said, Hayden, we've got to use this on the TSM podcast. Like, what is being shared here is perfect for the listeners. And I just very, very quickly, before we actually, jump into the main meat of the episode and actually start discussing everything and sharing this coaching call with all of the listeners, like, you've been a member of the School of the Successful Mentalist, like I'm slam words there, the School of the Successful Mentalist, one of our students for a little while now, like since we opened for the past few months. Like, how have you found it? Has it helped you? Out of curiosity, I'm just curious on the podcast to get some honest feedback.
Yeah, it's been fantastic for me. This community that you're creating is absolutely wonderful. That's the biggest take from me. While I really enjoy the one-to-one and find them incredibly useful, as everyone will hear in this up and coming thing, but for me, having ideas from people from all over the globe in one place and being able to talk openly about those ideas has been absolutely incredible. It's really amazing having not just people of different ages, but different areas. Everyone's got different inspirations. And when you can throw that all into a blender, you really come out with some amazing stuff.
Well, that's it. That's exactly what we're here to do at the School of the Successful Mentalist. Put everyone in a blender and hope for the best. But with that said, let's crack on and share the episode. Obviously, everyone's listening and waiting. But Sam, thanks again. Do you have any last-minute thoughts for these guys that are about to listen to this? What should they prepare for?
Grab a notepad and be prepared to listen to it a few times, if I'm honest. There really is a lot to go through.
Right, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. On that note, Ashley,
It's time to jump in to the main meaty coaching call that was with Samuel. Hope you guys enjoy it, and let us know on social media if you do listen to this. Just tag us, take a screenshot, and tag the Successful Mentalist, and I hope you enjoy it. I was saying to Sam that this question really links into this month's kind of podcast episodes, because you're on about creating new routines in particular, if I remember.
Yeah, it's more about how we start the process. Like, for God knows how long now, I've literally just been reading anything I get my hands on. So I've read a ton of random bits. But it's getting to the point now, I'll pick up a new book and then I'm like, well, this is just building on whatever. It's, you know, same routine, the same whatever, different routine, or same routine with slightly different workings. And I'm at that point where it's like, okay, well, where do I go from here? So obviously I need to start more on the creation side of things. But yeah, I don't really know where to start, as weird as that sounds.
yeah, no, so first things first, you don't, just because you've hit that point of you're seeing a lot of the same routines or the same methods or principles being shared around everywhere, doesn't mean they've now been exhausted and you need to create. Just because you're at that point, you don't need to create your own material. Heck, all of my material, albeit it's basic, but it's all stuff that I've learned elsewhere, really. I mean, heck, my shows have always, or for the most part, been stuff that I found in my books. It's like I'm using that material straight away, just putting my own presentation on it. So just because you don't need to go out and create material and create tricks and stuff, it's more if you can just adapt the presentations or even the angle or the concept or the context even that trick is used.
Yeah.
For me anyway, that's what I do first. I don't go out and try and create a trick because I have to create a trick. My process personally is I've got a vision for a routine. What do I want the routine to look like, or what do I want out of the routine? So for example, I wanted a routine that could be done to music, with the revelation being the music. That was it, because I love music. That was my vision. I wanted something music oriented, and that was kind of the place I was going. So then I started looking I searched books, products, and everything for methods or existing tricks that I could literally just copy and paste into that framework, that idea, and build it from there. But at the same time, I've had this idea that I saw like Darren's Enigma at the end of his show Enigma, that entire routine. I thought, I love the freedom, I love the craziness, I love the random fairness, I love how impossible that is. I want to do that in my own way. So then I custom built the trick based on that specific nuance, that little bit. So my creative process very much is starting at what do I want out of it, or what's the problem that I'm trying to fix?
Yeah. And
then I'll find it. But there's no pressure on me creating material for a show or for a close-up set, or like I don't want to create material if I'm lazy. I'd rather just adapt it. Okay. Why make it hard?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm at this point where I feel like I'm hitting a block. That's the only way I can put it.
Is there a specific thing that you like, a specific scenario or because both me and Ashley have hit that block before. Like we've both been there.
So I think that's my problem, is that I don't know. I don't know what sort of trick I want to create. Because I feel like everything I'm thinking about has been done a million times to death, to be honest. So
that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've hit a mental block, and I really don't know how to get past it. Like, obviously, I'm still really enjoying reading a lot, although, as I was saying before, it is very much in hypnosis now, just because it's so different to all the other stuff. But even that's getting to the point where no matter which hypnosis book I read, it's the same book about whatever, you know? So, yeah.
Let's start at the beginning then. You say you want to create routines, and you say you're trying to struggle coming up with routines. what scenarios are you trying to create these routines for? Are you trying to create them to sell, or are you trying to create them for stage, close up? Like, where does it all start? What do you want?
I like the idea of just saying I created this. As bad as that sounds, I want something that I can be proud of and it's unique. Everything I do now, anyone can do. Like, don't get me wrong, I put my own presentation spin on anything I perform to try and make it feel different. But, you know, there's only so many ways you can do, you know, Toxic Force, Witch Hat, any of these routines, really, anything that involves a peak, how we're revealing information. And I just want to, I don't know, try and do something different, but it's difficult.
It is, but at the same time, your solution is actually a lot more simple than and it will make sense in a second. So although it's not going to be necessarily the easiest of approaches, the idea is incredibly simple. You want something that is yours. You want something that is unique, and you want something that is yours because it's unique.
Yeah.
Right? They're the three, like the sort of 3 points.
Yeah.
Unique, yours because it's unique.
Yeah.
So let's tackle the first point, yours. There's only one way that we're going to make it yours, and that quite simply is pulling out the things that you enjoy the most. And it sounds ridiculous, but if you need to, notepad and pen, write out as many things that you like about existing routines, existing presentations, existing plots. What are your favorite bits? So for me, if I was going to write down, say, just 3 off the top of my head, 3 things that I love about mentalism, for example, Witch Hand. I love how a 50-50 can be so enticing to an entire audience.
Yeah.
What else do I love? I also love the fact that with mentalism, you can go into a different genre and a different ballpark that magic doesn't allow you to. More specifically, for me, blending into the realism, actually genuinely being real.
Yeah.
Whereas as a magician, so you get the idea. So these are the specific as you possibly can get, the easier this is going to get. So just saying, oh, like Witch Hand, that's not going to cut it, because that's not giving you that opportunity to blend into something new.
Yeah.
Being specifically clear about what you like out of a routine, out of mentalism, out of hypnosis, out of suggestion, or in general. Look outside of magic and mentalism. Aim for a list of 25. That's a key number. 25 specific points. From there, you can start mapping those together and seeing which connect. For example, like how simple audience, how easily the audience gets enticed into a 50-50. Well, what I also really love is how in this specific routine, everybody loves how there's like a gamble, like there's actual money on the table.
Yeah.
50-50, money on the table. Oh my gosh, there's a connection. Like I do the 50-50 for cash. Like there's a terrible example, really bad example.
I get what you mean. You're crossing
point.
those different points to try and create something that's
so you're not even
unique to you because it's where your interests lie. Almost.
Yeah, so it's not even you're trying to create something just yet. The idea there is that you're just trying to find out, like, what are your highest leverage interests? What are the bits that you enjoy the most? What kind of connect? What sort of ballpark areas, if you like? What are the key points that if you was to create something, you would get the maximum enjoyment or the best return out of creating something for that?
Yeah.
So then you get those 1, 2, 3, however many points you want, and you start to already shape something. Now it's really hard without practical examples. So again, but the idea there is that you build your interests, you take it a step further.
Yeah.
From there is when you start the play, and that's when you start creating. You just write ideas. Just think of, not necessarily plots, just think of the external things. What do you want to present? What else do you want? And then can you just make another list of those and just try and add those in? Really copy and paste and like A/B split test and just whatever it is for you. Just throw ideas out. You don't ever want to try and create something, because then you box yourself into this. Okay, here's what I'm trying to create. Oh wait, adding music. Oh, that fits in over here. No, that's not in between my parallels.
Yeah.
Instead, what you want to do is like this. You want to pyramid it. Get everything here so that the only thing at the top of the pyramid is the idea that you've created.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, it's a lot to take in one go.
Trust me, I appreciate that. It was for me. I'm literally so just quickly on the evolution of where this has come from. This actually came from an exercise from Stephen Kotler and the Flow Research Collective, all about actually creating your massively transformative purpose and like your big aspirational life goal thingies.
Yeah.
So he actually calls it the passion cycle or the passion recipe or whatever. So you take your curiosities, your 25 curiosities, and then you play in those areas to find those points. And ultimately then you're turning your curiosities into a collective passion. You then think deeper onto your passions, and then you can turn those passions into a purpose. Okay. So it goes from interests, passions, purpose, and then from that purpose, you can create your massively transformative purpose, your MTP, the big aspirational thing. But in this case, if we're going to apply it directly to the creation of magic and mentalism routines, what you're trying to do, that MTP there is actually just the trick, the routine, the effect, the whatever it is that you end up creating that is yours. Because it fits it's yours, it's unique, and it's yours because it's unique.
So with that in mind, essentially it's best to look at the end result and then work backwards.
You'll find it's much easier to do that. And whether it's actually the end result or a bit in the middle or just a feature of, don't pin yourself down to a formula. So both me and Ashley for that matter, we've looked at routines and we've thought, right, we want that out of the routine, we've built from that. But at the same time, we've also thought of a bit in the middle of the routine. And then the rest of the routine has come around that. Do you have any points on that, Ashley?
Well, I was just going to say, this slightly reminds me of when we was planning the end of our theatre tour. Like we had an idea, this is a show, we was like, right. And then we had to create an end of our theatre tour. It was like, what the hell do we do? Well, it was like, we didn't have an idea. We were like, we knew what the show was, but we didn't know how to finish it. So we sat down, we didn't talk about tricks. We was like, what would be hella cool? What would be insane? What could we do this? And we started throwing out ideas. We was like, imagine if we could play the lottery on the telly and then predict tonight's draw. Imagine if like blah, 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 all of this insane stuff. And then we kind of like whittled it down. And then we was like, right, now we've got a cool idea for a trick. How the hell do we do it? And then we was like, right. And then I think that's when you can apply the information that you've read from all of the books. Like once you start working backwards, you've got these crazy ideas, everything which you enjoy, exactly what Hayden was saying, and you're whittling it down. And it's like, I've got this idea now, which sounds insane and I'd love to do it. How? And then you apply your knowledge of everything you've read to make that how a reality. And we done that. And okay, what we came up with isn't actually using our own tricks, but the whole routine's ours, and it's never been used like that before. But we're using other tricks, other techniques to create a whole, like you say, new routine, which has never been done. And it started from just sitting down in a bar in Blackpool at the last convention, and just going, right, this weekend we're going to write a theatre show. What will be a silly ending? And we've done it.
It was genuinely, it just slotted into place. Because we'd gone, as Ashley said, we'd boiled it down from these crazy ambitious ideas that we really loved, and we pulled out what did we love about Darren's endings. Because Darren, let's be fair, if you need a closer for a show, you look at Darren for inspiration. It's just the way it is. Hey there, it's Hayden here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast for just a moment to let you know that all of this information that you've heard already and that you're about to hear can be found on our site in PDF format for free. All you need to do to access that is simply check the show notes, check the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this, click through the link to our site, and you'll be able to download it for free. No emails, no funny business. We just want to make sure that if you're interested in this content, you can take it away and take action immediately. Remember, on our site, just check the show notes, show description, click through to our site, hit download, and the PDF is yours. Anyway, back to the coaching session.
Was it you that I heard it from as well, or sorry to man, or was it where I read it somewhere else, but like giving your time switched on and then switched off to let your subconscious go?
Yeah, so this is actually in, I don't know if you had a chance to read the 4 stages of creativity, the article that I threw in the group, but essentially, no, 100% get to that. It's really short. It's like a 2-minute read at the most. It's very basic. And there's a 9-minute video at the end, but it's a 2-minute read to get the gist of it. But essentially there's 4 stages of curiosity, of creativity. But one of the most important ones is, as Ashley mentioned, switching off. not thinking about the idea, intentionally avoiding the idea, because that's when your subconscious is going to start pairing the ideas and actively thinking it and combine it, so that when you come back to the idea, it sounds very wishy-washy and very like mad, like, sure, magic's going to happen in my head, but it really, that's just the way psychology works. That's just the way the brain works with creative ideas. Give yourself that time off to reset. Your brain's going to do its thinking, so that when you come back to the idea, new things will fall, or you'll find yourself just actively not doing something. Hey, I've not written conventionally my online show yet, but I'm not intentionally writing it yet. I'm starting writing like either this evening or tomorrow, but I've got a heck ton of notes based on ideas. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to be able to do this and this, and maybe do a present. Okay, I really like these ideas. Cool. Make a quick note of what, and then I've actually found that, heck, I went to the bank the other week, and it was like last week, I drove to the bank, and on the 20-minute drive to the bank, full routine based on the ideas that I thought of the day before. It just popped into my head. I was like, this is great. And it happens like that.
I have it all the time on calls to Hayden. Ideas for TSM. How many times, Hayden, do I go for a wee and I come back and say, you're not going to believe this, by the time I flush the toilet, I have this idea. All the time.
It happens all the time. Like, I went to, I don't know how well known this is, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I went to go meet up with Peter Turner in London, and he didn't tell me at the time, but he was actually in the middle of consultation meetings for Ryan Trix's upcoming series, or one of the series that he's got in the pipelines. He didn't tell me that. I just walk in on this meeting with Ryan, Pete, somebody else. I think it might have been Mark Lemon, but I can't remember. But then there was like a couple of directors and stuff, and they were all talking ideas about the show. And Pete just brought me in and was like, yeah, it's fine, it's whatever. The directors pushed back on one of Ryan's ideas, and Pete said, right, here's a premise. We do this. He literally went to the bathroom, came back, and he's written an entire bloody show, an entire episode. He's written by the time he went to the bathroom, come back, whole thing. And so again, give yourself that opportunity to just don't put the pressure. As soon as you start pushing and forcing ideas, you get that resistance, and then you hit that mental block. The easiest way to overcome it is to just ask yourself more questions, and then avoid it.
Okay.
Let your brain do the work.
As well, when you are on, like, don't be annoyed with yourself. Don't get het up that you might be creating bad ideas, because if you've got a bad idea, follow it through, write it down. Write it down in a notebook, even if it's god awful, because eventually you'll get bad idea, bad idea, bad idea, bad idea, and you'll keep going. And then your brain might go, oh my God, that idea I wrote down that was god awful, what happens if I do this? Because you get all these ideas which will come into your head, and they might be bad. Go with it, because eventually that will be a source of inspiration for something good. And the more you start getting used to writing this stuff down, the more you start letting your brain pour these ideas out, the more ideas will come in. And I think that's the reason why Pete is always just so on it with creating these ideas, because he lets his ideas just fall out of his head, and his brain's used to just pumping out these ideas, and he's got that ability to switch on and off, and then it all paired up.
Yeah, creativity at the end of the day, it's people think it's a thing that you can do. Actually, I think it's more of a muscle that you train. It's one of those situations that you can't just, okay, I'm going to sit and this is my creative time.
Yeah,
fine, maybe that's your creative time, but what about it makes it creative? The fact that you've called it creative time, or the fact that you're actually using yourself as a means to an end? Again, just to reference the Flow Research Collective again, their understanding of peak performance in like cognitive, emotional, or in all levels, ultimate peak performance is all about hacking your biology and your physiology to allow it to work for you rather than against you. So finding those ways for installing brakes, asking questions and letting ideas just connect the dots, writing stuff down to come back to it later. If you can do all of that, naturally the creativity is going to come in. It's something that I still struggle with, and I always look for the books, but having spoken to Timon Kraus about just inspiration, like where do we find inspiration, because he's got a fantastic essay on inspiration. I don't know whether it's in a book or whether that's a separate thing. He just sent it to me and it was crazy. We spoke to him, and one of the things that he said really left a mark on me. It's like, you can have a huge library, that's great, have as many books as DVDs, anything, that's great, but you don't go to those for inspiration, you go to those for information. And for me, that was just like, wow, you're right. When I create a routine, there's so many times I used to just go and pick up a book and flick through it, or pick up a couple of books and flick through those and think, oh, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And actually, he's right. I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm trying to fill in the blanks to a question that's not even been asked yet. Does all of that kind of make sense? I realise that this is probably one
It's
of
a
the
lot to take in.
deepest, so much.
But no, this is good. This is what I need. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe what I need to do is not be so focused on the creation side, but rather be happy with the routine inside. Because I think maybe that's my problem is that, as I said, everything I do, I try and routine in a way that I think's a bit more unique. But I still feel like I'm a carbon copy of other people, even though the routines I'm creating, I'm hoping are different, whether that's just the pattern stuff. But maybe I should not be like that and kind of just go with it.
I think for me, there's sort of two key elements to that again, they're mindset shifts that I've personally had to implement in my own stuff, and I'm sure that you'll benefit from as well. But one of them is the idea of craving that label, craving that this is mine. You get so hooked on this idea and this addiction of like, here's the thing that I want, but you're chasing an end goal at that point. You're chasing something that's not going to give you that, what you think it's going to give you. Sure, it might give you a short-term pleasure, a short-term like, oh my God, yes, I've finally done it. But because it's got a definitive end, it's because it's that end point. As soon as you get to that point, everything after it's just, oh, and then you'll hit that. You genuinely, regardless, you might get to that point and tell yourself, great, I'm going to create another routine after I've done that. And you think that's what's going to get your momentum going. You're going to really go for it. As soon as you hit that one creation, because you've bigged it up as a huge end goals never work in the way that people think they do. You will have that dip in motivation because it won't give you the results you want. And it's that idea that you should be focusing more on that journey, that creating a routine, just as you mentioned. Spend more time enjoying that, or focusing the attention on the creation process, on that process of building and developing the routines and finding your processes, learning about you ultimately, the way that you work and you create, because that's where the value is going to be. So that, sure, that may be a trigger point. That goal is a great, yes, I finally reached that, but it's not like you're doing it for that. Instead, that's just a metric so you can measure your own growth and measure your own creativity and your own ability to problem solve. And I'm so sorry, this is a huge, genuine. This is a massive.
Yeah, I've been rewatching this one a few times, I think.
Well, to be fair, this is one of those calls that genuinely anybody would benefit from, I think, because of the information. It can be applied in so many contexts. But the second mindset I really want to just throw out there, it's that being able to accumulate and just be aware of delayed gratification. As a species nowadays in the modern world, we crave instant gratification. We crave that, I want this, yes, I want this, yes, I want this, yes. And in this case, it might be the case of, I want this routine. Why? Because it'll be mine, and then that's great. But that's a situation. That's one of those cravings of instant gratification. I would personally argue, you might see it differently, but from my perspective, it's like you want that, and because it's not in reach, you're having trouble, and that's where the mental blocks come in, because you're not getting the instant gratification. So by having that mindset shift of, I'm actually sure that's a metric rather than a goal. The goal is to become more creative and to be a better creator and be a better thinker in that respect, which again is arguably a not very bound by metrics. You put yourself in this position that you're not chasing that instant gratification. You're delaying the gratification because you know in the end you're going to be in a better position.
There's also something which you sent to me as well about not letting people know about your ideas until they're done.
We've both fallen for this. The ideas that most people say and verbalize, they're less likely to achieve. If you have a big goal and you throw it out there, you're less likely to achieve it than if you kept your mouth shut. You're trying to do something, unless you're specifically working with somebody who you definitely are, who is going to help you get to that goal, your best bet is to stay silent and not do anything, and like verbally anyway, because your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between things that you said you're going to do and things that you've actually done. It's really bad at that. So by saying, here's one of the things that I want to do, and by telling people, like, this is my ambition, bam, 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 these are the things I want to do, I want to have this, bam, 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 you essentially trick your mind into thinking it's already been done, so you're not prepared to drive and work for it, and your brain, it's not that you're not necessarily prepared to drive and work for it, your brain just won't help you. So again, by keeping those ideas quiet, you're essentially keeping them into yourself. And again, it's one of those situations of shock them with your result.
Okay.
So that's just a little. So I mean, I've fallen for that so badly.
Yeah, it's surprising
So
actually.
badly.
I've always been on the mindset of discussions essentially. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is the ballpark, and then discussing with people to get different aspects, and then thinking the best avenue.
I think that for the most part, it depends on the goal, but there is a big difference between accountability and just sharing your goals. I think if you're sharing it with the right people that can help you further your knowledge and your interest and your progression to those goals, then in that situation, you'd probably be good actually talking to them. But if you keep telling people and you tell more people and you keep saying it over and over and over again, you're knocking yourself back into that position that, oh yeah, I've done it already. I've done it. I've told so many people I've basically done it. And then you'll settle for second best rather than being literally in a call with 1-2 other people like this and saying, this is what I want to do. I want to get to this point. Can you help me? Or I want to get to this point. What are your thoughts on how I can do that? Not asking, do you think it's possible? Or do you think it's a good idea? No. Ignore all of that. Ask for progressive questions and get people only progressing to the point, because then you're relying on too many external factors if you start asking questions that don't further the goal. Okay.
Really surprised about that, but it makes a lot of sense.
It's the same as again, it's the same as visualization stuff.
Yeah.
Your subconscious can't distinguish between what it's watching, like in a TV screen, and what it's watching in the main world.
I was reading part of the code on that, and he uses creative visualization to cure his acne, and he does that by spending 5 minutes 3 times a day imagining that he's taking the clean blue sky and putting it on his face, and it's sticking to his face, and then he's cracking and peeling it off to leave beautiful skin underneath. And it's almost like a placebo effect. It tricks your body into thinking that, oh yeah, no, the skin's fine, and then it is. And he cured his acne that way when doctors couldn't with medicine. He then goes into talk about how how a lot of drugs are rejected because they can't beat a placebo effect. And then he goes on talking about how there was 7 or 10 patients who had arthritis or something. Only 2 of them had the serious operation that was needed to cure their problem. The others didn't. They were just had an incision and sewed back up, so they didn't have the operation. Anyway, time passes. None of them can work out who had the operation and who didn't, but they was all cured. But only 2 of them had the operation.
It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff. So that's the long-winded, deep philosophical way of creating a new magic and mentalism routine.
There you go. So
what has this happened? This is one that, again,
think about it, don't think about it. Do it, but don't do it. Just think about it, but don't think about it. You ready?
Ridiculous. Well, this is
like cold reading. Jeez.
That's great. Well, we should have told Ferdinand all of that earlier. He wanted to learn about blooming cold reading. We should have just told him this. Yeah, so it's one of those cases that all of this information, it's dense. There's a lot of again, this is where I was saying at the start, although it's simple, the way to solve the problem is simple. Again, you established yourself this triad of you want something that's yours, you want something that's unique, and you want something that's unique because it's yours. Well, break that down. Get your nail one at a time. Like, what do you love about the most about when you're performing? Find out what makes something truly yours. What's unique? What are things that you've thought of doing that haven't been done? Or what are things that you do that haven't been done? Nail that bit. Pair them together. Then you get something that's unique, that's yours, because it's your interests. So it's really simple to fix these huge creative blocks. And again, research creativity, check the article, and all of that stuff. But it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It is not an easy thing to do.
And shift your mindset. Stop saying, I'm struggling doing this. Stop saying, I've hit a wall. I can't do this, because then you're just reinforcing that idea that you can't do it.
Jim Quick's one of speed readers and memory experts and all of that stuff. One of his phrases is, if you fight for your limitations, you keep them.
Oh, wow.
If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And again, it's just like what we said a minute ago. I would argue that it kind of pairs into telling people about your goals. If you're telling people that you're stuck in a creative block, and your subconscious will then believe it, and your brain will be in that position of, I'm in a subconscious block. We've said, you said right at the beginning of this call, Sam, you said that you're in this creative block, but the problem isn't that you're in a creative block. The problem is that you didn't know where to go. You wanted to create something, you knew kind of what you wanted to do, but you didn't know where to take it or what direction to go. So you've established problem, solution being find the direction. We've just given you a couple of ways to do that. So again, you're not in a creative block, it's just not sure on the next step. It's really important to just shift that mindset into a situation of, it's a growth mindset. It's an optimistic and growth mindset. That's what I've done. That's all I've done. 6 to 8 months ago, I thought, right, I'm going to turn my life around. How do I do it? I'd fix my brain.
Really
Before that, he was eating 9 cereal bars in Blackpool. Now look at him.
Albeit, if Blackpool happens again, I'll probably still consider the 9 cereal bars because it's Blackpool.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, that's a lie. I don't think I can do it. That's a limitation I'm prepared to fight for. It's dangerous. But yeah, hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully there's watch the content, apply it out of context. See, I gave you this entire recipe of how to take your like build this routine from the ground up based on your passions, your interests, and your favorite bits. I stole that from a completely different context about how to find your big life purpose.
Yeah.
It works. It's a formula that worked for me 3 times in a row. It's got to work out of that context.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow. That was insane. Honestly, Hayden, when I listened to this the first time, you blew my mind. When I listened to it the second time, you blew my mind again. There was so much information shared with this. I know personally, I got so much from that. Like even today, I was using the tips shared in that, all of the actionable things that I could take. And it really helped me in my own work with creativity. It's incredible. So I just hope, guys, all of you listening, I really hope you had a notepad and pen to hand, because there was so much information, and I know it's going to be one which you're going to have to really listen back to if you want to get the full benefit from this at least 5 million times, because there was so much information there.
Yeah, I'm very sorry if I've ruined anybody's notepads or anything like that. If that has happened, please feel free to bill us at the successful. I'm joking. That was a joke. Please don't bill us. But hopefully you got something out of that. Again, we spoke to Sam straight after after the call took place, and he came away with one big takeaway. We spoke to him a few days later after he'd re-listened to it. His big takeaway was something completely different. And a third time, literally today, as we was talking to him at the start of the podcast, his big takeaway was something completely different again. So it's hopefully there's value there. But more importantly, if you want to talk to us in your own sort of coaching session, we're open to do that. Again, we can talk about anything that will help improve your business mindset and performances. All you need to do is simply head over to thesuccessfulmentalist.com/coaching, and that will be a full page all about the coaching sessions, what we offer, how we can do that, the full process, everything. Equally, you could just email us at thesuccessfulmentalist@gmail.com. From there, we'll send you all the information, but I promise they're not all that dense. I don't want people thinking that every single coaching session they're going to have to listen to 1,000,001 times. This just happened to be one of those episodes.
That's it. But no, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. And here's a little fun thing. I can't wait to share next month's episodes with you, because it's a whole brand new variety of topics, a whole brand new special guest. So here's something fun which you guys can play along and potentially win something. Obviously, we've got a special guest coming on at the end of next month, with obviously to finish off the variety of topics we talk about. If you want to have a guess at trying to guess who the special guest is, that was a mouthful to get out, go over to Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, write down who you think the special guest is going to be at the end of the month, tag us at The Successful Mentalist. If you get it right, you might win yourself a TSM mug. How about that? So with that in mind, I can't wait to see you next month. So we'll see you soon.